All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for what I'm personally excited about will be, I think, a fantastic webinar with some great folks on the line here today. We've got lots of people joining us here at the top of the hour, but out of respect for everybody's busy schedule, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. So my name is Maggie Keene. I'm the Vice President over here at Mission Care Collective, or the parent company of My CNA Jobs, Coach Up Care, and Mission Care. I'm excited to be here today to moderate what I think is going to be a really powerful conversation between some great leading industry CEOs. So today I'm joined by our CEO and founder, Brandy Kurtyka, along with Neil Kurzban, CEO of Family and Nursing Care, Vicki Hoke, the CEO and leader of the Home Care Association of America, and Tim Hanold, the CEO of Care Advantage. So I'll give them all an opportunity in a second here to introduce themselves and their organizations, but we've brought these leaders together to have a meaningful discussion today around home care's toughest topics. So over the next hour, we're going to dive into some questions focused on bringing more people into the industry, what opportunities and threats we see in the current landscape, and what's working and what's not working in recruitment and retention today. All these questions are focused on the goal of helping everybody on the line drive both better care and a better workplace. So we've got lots of great topics to tackle today, along with some time at the end for open Q&A. So if you have any questions, which I'm sure you will as we dive in, or want to direct anything to anybody in particular, let us know. Type those questions in as we go. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first, I'll go ahead, and Neil, I'm going to have you kick us off in order here, but love for each of you to tell us a little bit about your background and the organizations that you lead.
Start with me. Okay, well, thank you for having me, Meg. So yes, Neil Kurzban, CEO, Family Nursing Care. It's a 54-year-old home care company, started in 1968. I'm second generation. My mother founded it way back then. And we have, apparently this is somewhat unique, we have both models of care. We have the registry model and the agency model, and combined we're in the Maryland, DC area. And we do a little more than 40,000 hours of care per week. And it's just been sort of gradual growth over these 50 plus years of being in business. And I'm proud to say that the company is older than I am. So there you have it.
People are doing that math, Neil, so thank you for clarifying that. Thinking about it, but no, so wonderful. We're excited to have you on here. Always enjoy you joining these conversations. So Tim, I'll pass the mic to you and the team at Care Advantage. You tell us a little bit more about your background in the organization there.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. Always good to be involved here on these conversations, and it does take a village, right, for us all to improve. So I'll also be hopefully providing some good points, but also learning a lot here too. So yeah, my name's Tim Hanold, the CEO of Care Advantage. Care Advantage started back in 1988 in Richmond, and I joined here 4 years ago, but the company has certainly been growing quite a bit over those decades, but still have a very common theme of serving the public and uplifting our communities we serve in a lot of different ways. And one way that we're really excited to talk more about here today is what we're doing with our caregiver community, and whether it's called care heroes or whatever you want to call it, they're the folks that make our world go round, right? They make it all happen. So previous to Care Advantage, I was at Senior Bridge, which was a geriatric care management and home care company. Started out in New York, became a national company, and then eventually acquired by Humana. And so we were their first platform for care in the home. Aptly, I like this, keep it simple, Humana at home. So I was there in a number of different roles, and then also went over to be one of the leaders in the Humana Wellness Division, and then had this great opportunity to come down and be part of this great team. Care Advantage, last year we served over 10,000 patients in an array of different payer sources. So Medicaid, Medicare, VA, private pay, you name it. So throughout the home, rather pretty extensive continuum of care. We also have a skilled division and a number of different points throughout Virginia. We serve Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Delaware, and we are owned by private equity group Searchlight Capital Partners.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. And you've got lots of experience to bring to the conversation today. So, Vicki, I'll pass the mic to yourself and your organization, the Home Care Association of America.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Brandy, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, especially to be on a panel with Neil and Tim. This is a topic that we all are struggling with, and I think the more we talk about it, we do find little nuggets that we can take back to our agencies. I've been the CEO for the Home Care Association for almost 3 years, going on 3 years, but prior to that, served as the CEO for the Pennsylvania Home Care Association for 20 years. I represent now more than 4,000 home care agencies across the country, primarily providing in-home personal care. We had a wonderful year. We have grown our association by 500 agencies in just 2021. So we're very focused on growing our members and increasing the volume of the voice of home care agencies, whether that be in Washington, D.C. or in state capitals across the country. So it's a real pleasure to be here. I look forward to a great discussion.
Absolutely. And Brandy, last but certainly not least, I'll pass the mic to you.
Thanks, Maggie. Appreciate everyone being on the line today. Tim, Vicki, Neil, Maggie, special thank you to you for pulling this together. As Maggie mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mission Care Collective, which is the parent company of our growing suite of brands. Most of you on the line probably know us as My CNA Jobs, and we've been serving the industry now for over a decade. We help connect millions of people to jobs and training last year, and we are proud to serve over 8,000 healthcare companies, from home care to senior living to health systems. Despite the name, we're a community comprised of companions, home health aides, other frontline healthcare workers, so think LinkedIn for caregivers, if you will. Been in the trenches for a really long time serving the industry, and when the pandemic hit, we saw the writing on the wall that recruitment and retention challenges that we're all already feeling and facing were going to get worse and not better. So we started to think about, how can we help? And now My CNA Jobs helps get people in the door, and our new brand, Coach Up Care, helps companies engage and retain people so they're not going out the back door. So we're broadening our suite of tools to help come alongside our clients, not only attract, but also engage and retain their people to deliver better care.
Absolutely. Well, as you can see, why I'm excited to moderate today's conversation is all 4 of these CEOs have fantastic background, interesting insights, and excited to kick that off with this first question. And I know this is one that we come across on a daily basis from our perspective, so I'll have Brandy kick this one off, but there's not enough people in care, right? This is something we've been talking about. We've been talking about it for a while. I had a client this morning call it the crisis of care, right? So how do we bring more people into the industry? And Brandy, I'll let you kick that one off.
Yeah, great question. Probably my favorite one in here today. We all need as an industry to take responsibility for creating more caregivers. We're sitting here today. We know there's not enough people. We need to do everything humanly possible to get more people into the industry to meet the growing care needs that we not only have now, but we're going to have over the coming years. And there's a lot to unpack here in this question, but I think it really starts with awareness. There's not enough people that know about the many, I'm going to call it invisible roles, if you will, in healthcare. So people know about pharmacy jobs as they walk into a CVS. They know about hygienist jobs because they go to the dentist. They might know about an MA role because they go to the doctor. But what people don't always know is what's happening behind the scenes in a home care setting. So I think that's one. We need more of an understanding of the role and the meaning behind the impact that someone can make in this role in working in a home care setting. So that's the first one. Next, I think we just need to make it more attractive to work in the field and provide more pathways in and up than we necessarily have today. For the most part, from our perspective, training is done for compliance in our space. Training is done to get a license, or training is done to get CEs that are required to meet a specific federal or state requirement. And it makes sense why we are here. Every one of us has been busy drinking from a fire hose with COVID, and training is, for compliance is required. We do it because we have to. But what's required to really get people into the industry and keep people in the industry is beyond that. And it's really around recognizing, where an individual is in their career journey, if you will, and what they want out of a position, and helping them take their next step in a way that's meaningful and meets that individual where they're at.
Absolutely. Vicki, I love your perspective on this. I know prior to this, you were leaving another national conversation to come and have this conversation. Would love your perspective on how do we get more people into the industry?
Yeah, and I'm sure Neil and Tim have had many staff meetings about this. Whenever we gather a lot of our members, I was with California members yesterday, we talk about this. And when we think about what we're all going through in this country, inflation, and then we have the great resignation and people aren't returning to work, I think we have to sit back and listen to what our current caregivers are telling us, why they came into this field. And Brandy, I agree with everything you said, but what sets us apart, this industry, apart from the hospitality industry, the Amazons, all of those other industries that we are competing with? And while they may offer better wages, and that's something, you're absolutely right, Brandy, we've got to look at that and be very serious about that. And I think our industry has. I think we have great evidence that our agencies have increased wages of their workers. But what makes us different than Amazon? And I think that's key when we look at how do we bring people into becoming caregivers. And the one thing that sets us apart from Amazon and all those others is that we're looking for someone that has the passion for caregiving, that this is not this is a career that can make a difference in people's lives. It's different than stuffing a box at an Amazon, factory, or, checking people out of a retail store or serving people at a restaurant. This is caregiving at its best. We need a person with both hard and soft skills, someone that has the hard skills of being able to communicate, but also someone that has that passion. And I don't think we have really focused enough on that's what makes this different. You can make a difference in individuals' lives by being a caregiver. I don't think we have sold that enough in our, in our marketing, in what we're doing as far as, recruiting our workers.
No, absolutely. Tim, from a provider perspective, what are you seeing here? What do you think we need to do here?
Yeah, there's some definitely common threads here from the conversation thus far. So 2 things I would take away is make it compelling, make it easy. And so when make it compelling, it's getting back to exactly what we kind of started out the conversation with here, is that there's a myriad of different ways and options for this labor pool. But when you really get down to it, it's kind of like the why, right? And that's something that no real kind of like silver bullet around this, but a lot of different points and a lot of different ways, overall total effort with it. But when I think about, Vicki made a great point around when you consider all the payer sources, I mean, we're not going to be the highest paying job on average in this labor band by any means. So, our campaigns, our communications, they really key in on that purpose-driven work. So the why, what they do with their time and energy, and how that is a noble cause every single day on serving the community. The other component of this is make it as easy as possible. We probably I can say from our own introspection and looking at the way we do things from a kind of a sourcing, talent acquisition part within our company over the last number of years, we weren't making it that easy for folks to really come in and join us in a very kind of quick and expeditious way. So we spent time rethinking our routine around how we bring in caregivers into our care family, making it more faster, more convenient, for talent that really is interested in pursuing this kind of profession in care. So more channels, make it as seamless and simple as possible. For example, look outside of home care and go apply to become an Uber driver. And you'll find a pretty seamless, a phone, you have a supercomputer essentially in the palm of your hand, and how quick and simple that is. And our job is to mirror that and make it as quick as possible. If someone's got the passion and wants to do the purpose-driven work, let's not make 127 steps from like I'm interested to my first shift.
I think I have to tell Brandy monthly or quarterly that I'm not leaving her to go work somewhere else because of the number of jobs that I apply for, just to see what that process is like. Uber, Amazon, Starbucks, I've done a few of them. So absolutely, if you haven't done that, folks in the line, highly recommend it, just to see what that process is like, because a lot of other industries are doing a very good job on that front. So absolutely. Neil, your perspective here on this, I definitely would value it.
All right, so around the country, a lot of the home care aides tend not to be from the United States. And I think one sort of simple solution is allow more people that want to come to America. That's kind of how we were founded. And I'm not trying to get all political or preachy, but it just seems like a simple, logical, let more people into the country. And a lot of them are outstanding caregivers. Like it's almost like culturally speaking. So that's I would say a simple one, but apparently I guess it's not that simple. And then I guess I'm a bit of a contrarian on a little bit of what Vicki and Tim had said, where I do believe that money matters. And of course, the art of caregiving matters. And you're a caregiver with love in your heart and you want to be a great caregiver. But like in anything you do, anything professionally, you deserve to be paid with whatever, you deserve to get paid for the value of what you're contributing. And, around the country, I don't know what the average wage is now, 14, 15 an hour. And it's just hard to get by. It's just to live day to day, let alone even considering saving for your future. And regardless of what work you're doing, whether you're in home care or Amazon or wherever. But I know like in our area, this Maryland, DC, I mean, Tim and I overlap, it costs like $2,000 to get one. In my state, you have to be a certified nursing assistant to do the care. And you got to spend $2,000 to do all the class, to get your certification, 60, 80, 100, 120, hours of classes that you're not actually getting paid for. You're having to give up your time where you're living paycheck to paycheck. And then you got to pass the exam, and then you got to pay every year to keep your license active. And honestly, I think a home care worker in today's world sees the complications with that. Even if they want to be a caregiver and they say, boy, that Amazon job that my buddy's doing seems a lot easier, or my Uber job. So I just think I do think wages need to go up. They have gone up, and I do think that they'll need to continue to go. There was never historically, like I've been doing this for me personally, over 26 years. Up until the last few years, there was never a discussion about minimum wage and what impact it has on the wages of the caregiver, because the gap was so much bigger. And so there wasn't this, do I go to Amazon or Target or wherever? Like, it's only recently. So I think the gap does need to get bigger between wages. So, and then lastly, I'll be real quick. The Maryland and DC, like you have to have a license, and they say, well, you can be licensed, but you have to have our particular license, our District of Columbia nursing assistant license or home health agent. But if you're from Maryland, you can't come over and work and do ADLs and companion care. It's just, really? Can't we simplify that? As an example.
No, absolutely. And I see all the other three panelists nodding along with you on some of that. And I think that leads well into our next question, which is how can we make care jobs more attractive to compete with outside industries? And you touched on this a little bit. So Tim, I'll have you kick us off here with your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, and also just kind of like taking a thread from what Neil was saying there. Obviously, pay does matter. When we're looking at care delivery to the entire population, obviously there's going to be varying kind of levels of gross profit spread in there. And so, I mean, there is a business here and how we're going about and accomplishing that. So anyway, there's different payer sources that present, kind of different challenges and so forth. But wherever we can kind of race to the top on paying caregivers, I think, we run alongside that as much as we can. But I mean, it's, when you think about, how we treat our caregivers in regards to the pace of like, all right, this is a long-term sustainable professional job. The pay is important, what it looks like, in regards to the paychecks. The support systems that we provide, especially new caregivers coming into, the career of care, It's not easy work. It's rather intimidating, especially in that first time you knock on the door and you're going in to take care of someone. So are we, there's a dollars, but also how are we providing the right type of development and support for those caregivers when they're going into work with a family the first time. And it's beyond just kind of like reading out the care plan, but it's like this consistent basis of support loops, which I know we're going to get to later with some of the other additional questions. Maintaining flexibility. I mean, it's a big reason why a lot of folks, essentially want to work in home care. Amazon is going to be a very kind of rigid schedule and very specific way and also different types of energy and different types of focus on different types of work. It's probably going back to the why. I think that's always an important part of it. See these two questions as kind of, being pretty similar in that way. But also it's like, here we can customize more around the understanding of what their work preferences are. And we can kind of like customize with that. And that's working with our case management system or EVV around, instead of just kind of harassing caregivers on a daily basis, like, hey, can you fill this shift? But actually it's a reverse commute of like, this is the type of work that you were looking for. One caregiver is looking for 60 hours, another caregiver is looking for 10 hours a week, and our ability to essentially make our systems work for us and essentially serve the caregiver the hours that they're looking for in the right way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. A lot there to unpack, but Vicki, I'd love your perspective on this.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. And Tim, you're absolutely right. This is just so multifaceted to get to the bottom of how can we improve our recruitment and retention. And because I'm not a provider, however, talk with a lot of providers and really are on that advocacy side and just listening. It is amazing. This is an industry that is so resilient. I have been representing the industry for close to 25 years now, and we've had to deal with challenges like when we lost the companion exemption and all those things. And I think what we're seeing today is these really unique solutions that providers are trying to implement to attract caregivers. One of those is paying daily. I was on a call the other day where agencies are now figuring out that maybe our workers need to be paid daily. And so they're looking at daily payment. I think the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of interest in the Canary Fund, where they're establishing an emergency fund that would be made available to their workers if they have an emergency where they need to, get some kind of money to help with a car, needing a new motor or something along those lines. I think the other thing as far as advocacy that I did want to mention, and it's something that Neil said about immigration. And I think, Tim, you might have said something about just the time it takes to hire someone. This is an industry that has a challenge of fragmentation. Depending on whether you're operating in Virginia or DC, you all have different rules to, operate under. In New Jersey right now, we're having a real problem with getting our aides through the certification program, and they're languishing for 3 months. We have got to also look at our advocacy efforts to correct all of those things where government is making that our recruitment and retention efforts even more challenging because of the various rules. It's one of the reasons why our association came out in support of establishing some kind of national standards for home care agencies, so we would not have this difference in, this is required in one state, you can't even hire a CNA if you're a non-medical agency. And just so trying to eliminate that challenge is another part of this puzzle that we've got to figure out how to piece it together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Brandy, what are your thoughts on how we can make these more attractive to compete with outside industries?
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone's perspectives here. I agree with everything that's been said. There's a lot to unpack here. Wages do need to increase. It's not everything, but to Neil's point, money matters, and it needs to be part of our conversation. It's a hard problem. You have people that need higher wages. We're constrained by reimbursement rates, and you have a lot of seniors that can't pay more. So I think wages just needs to stay on the table, if you will, as we talk as an industry. But another area that's not wage related and really kind of building on something that I talked about in the last question, when you think about what's attractive, I think I was thinking about not what's attractive to a group, but what's attractive to an individual. Because when I think about that, what's attractive to one person is different from another. It's about individualization, and it's really around recognizing, like, where is an individual, one person, where are they at in their career, and helping them take their next step. And the reality is, you know, half of people that are working in home care are in some type of public assistance. You have a high minority population, you have women, you have single moms, you have a group of people that fundamentally they struggle to make ends meet. It's not the highest paying job. And so when you think about identifying what's important to each person, you know, every single person, regardless of like where they're at in their journey, I'm a firm believer in this, they want some type of next step. That doesn't mean every CNA wants to become an RN, but my belief is it's human nature for everyone to want a brighter future. And for some people, that could be, you know, building the perfect schedule, to Tim's point, for their family unit. I'm a mom of 4 kids, and I can speak to the need of needing to build a perfect schedule to manage home life. Next step for another individual could be picking up a new skill to become competent in a role, or the ability to take on new clients. It could be, I want to become a stronger English writer and speaker. It could be, I want to become a mentor. I want to take on a new responsibility and potentially be compensated for it. And as we just think about like how to make care jobs more attractive, it's good that we think about how do we do this like as an industry, but I also just challenge us to think about like the individual person and recognizing that each caregiver is unique, and this crowd struggles with some things at home that a lot of us probably don't struggle with. And I think it's thinking about those individuals and how we can come alongside those individuals to help them take their next step makes it more attractive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thinking about that on an individual level as well. So Neil, your thoughts on this before we head to our next question here.
So having been to many conferences over many years, it's interesting just the last 3 or 4 years, the massive shift in almost every you used to hear how to close an intake when a family calls in, or how to market your business, and how to sell your services to the professionals. And all, I mean, for me, decades of listening to that. And personally, I've always been mystified that there hadn't been enough attention geared towards energy with this conversation, getting caregivers, attracting them, keeping them, retaining. So I'm just glad that we're finally really putting some earnest effort in, I mean, this conversation as a whole. And I think when you're running your business, your home care companies, I mean, just to put more energy into earning, how do you earn a stellar reputation from the professionals that refer to your business? How do you do it for your caregivers? What do you do independently or individually in your business that makes you, in your market, your brand wants to be where caregivers want to go? They have choices, but why have them come to you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of the fact we do very little advertising for caregivers because they come to us. And it takes a culture, a mindset of how to wow them, how to treat them in a way that they wouldn't want to work anywhere else. And they're very proud when they actually come on board with your company.
No,
I can say a lot more, but
I've built some questions. I will give you an opportunity to, Neil, I promise. But no, and I think that's you and I have had multiple conversations, not the least of which is leading up to today's discussion around that being the topic, right? These being the topics, recruitment and retention being the focus and not the afterthought. And a lot of things that we've all learned over the past 2 years in the pandemic, and Tim, you touched on this, meeting people where they're at, right? Speed to hire, making it easy to get hired, making it easy to work, but then also once somebody is your employee, connecting with them, right? Making them feel engaged and a part of something bigger. And I think that, you've talked about, ways that you and your team do that. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but I want to pop over. You've all sort of talked about this one a little bit over the last question or two, but starting with you, Neil, this is a hot topic, right? It's a tough question in our industry. Can we raise the cost of care to raise wages? What does that look like? So Neil, I'd love your thoughts on this one.
Well, it's hard to make a global statement, or a national-wide comment. I mean, I think it depends on the market. I know in our particular market in 2021, we had a record-breaking number of people asking for business, while we have had record-breaking increases in our rates that we're charging to clients. I hate it. I don't like it. But again, it comes down, it's like an economic principle of supply and demand. And if there's, and this is, and by the way, I do only private pay. So I know this is a different conversation for those that do Medicaid. So in my private pay world, it's a little different. But so as long as the demand is there, it's a supply and demand question, really. And if people are able to afford it, and the phone was ringing quite a bit, so it suggests that people, to my surprise, were willing to pay. But that was in my market. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country. So, and I would also say that I think we as business owners, CEOs, and we have a responsibility to run a more efficient, well-organized, well-oiled machine internal operation. And when we're not doing that, what do we end up doing? Well, we default as, oh, we got to hire more people. And then what do we got? Oh, we got to raise our rates to afford to hire more people. Like, what about us as people that run our businesses to look where there's inefficiencies and dig deep and have an open mind and find out, because they're there everywhere, every business, and you can figure out a way to be much more efficient where you don't necessarily have to hire as many people and you don't have to raise your rates to afford to have your margins. And then lastly, I'll just say one more thing. There's, on the advocacy front that Vicki had touched on, there's a very simple, there's a bill in Congress, like the Home Care for Seniors Act, which would enable people to use their HSA, their health savings account dollars to pay for home care. And although it may not make a huge difference today, I think as the years go on, more and more people will have HSA money tucked away to help pay for these services. And it has bipartisan support, so it's like, let's pass that bill already.
Yeah.
And once again, I have a lot more I could say, but I'll stop.
It's a good intro to Vicki there, but no, Vicki,
Yeah.
I love your perspective. Obviously, I know there's a lot happening here on a national level, and would love your thoughts here.
Yeah, and again, just having a lot of conversations with our members, I think Neil is right. I was with a group yesterday, and it was very interesting to hear them talk about that they've had to increase wages, which means they had to increase their charges for hourly care. And that some of them, because of this new visibility of home care, that's one thing that I keep hearing over and over again. I think we've already talked about it since the pandemic. People know who we are. And I was with another group and they were saying, I now go into the state capitol and I don't have to start out by just explaining what home care is anymore. They know it. And as a result of that, more people are coming to us for care, and they're willing to pay. I think they recognize the whole inflation thing. They recognize that these workers are so critical to their well-being that they're willing to pay. I think it's going to come down to that balance, that we don't want to become so expensive that only a small group of our population can afford us. And then there's always the Medicaid issue. We are doing a lot of advocacy at the various state levels to try to get the Medicaid rate up so it is commensurate with whatever that minimum wage is, because we have lots of states now that are elevating their minimum wage. But let's face it, I think in today's market, if you're not offering really competitive wages, you're not going to survive. And yet, I think wages are important. I still think people are looking for the culture of caring. They want to come to an employer that cares about them, that wants to help them elevate, that's looking for advancement. And, we can all say it's great to have a career path that all of our caregivers want to become LPNs and RNs. Well, I think there's a lot that don't yet. They want a career path. So let's look at what can we do. Maybe it's the mentoring. Maybe it's having one of them come up and be the supervisor of their peers and those kinds of things. And so I think we also have to make sure that if there is any legislation, Neil pointed out the HSA, but there's the Credit for Caring Act that would also help families keep their loved ones home by giving them a tax credit. And the Elizabeth Dole Act is another one that was introduced. The Elizabeth Dole Act has to do with the VA benefits and allowing veterans to receive care to the cost of what it would be in a nursing home, whereas right now it's like 65%. That's also good. And I think that we have to recognize that wages are something that I think people will bear because of the value. I know as a client of a home care agency for 3 years when my mother lived with me, I always think back on that time, and it was only 2 years ago. Our family would have paid anything. We would have, just because we knew how important Sue was to my mother and to our family.
I know we've talked about that too, and the value that you said, brought it up, walking into state legislatures and into offices and not having to introduce home care, right? So tend to be glass half full, right? And that is a silver lining here over the last 2 years. But Tim would love your additional thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, before we move on, Vicki, thank you for all the great work. I mean, it is really, really important. There was, obviously the pandemic was an accelerator, but between yourself, your buddy Bill Dombey, and others, I mean, it's your work is getting us there. And you know, whether it's in Virginia and other places, you know, doing some also advocacy too. It's no longer are we having to start out with what home care is. Like Brandy was saying a little bit earlier, it just for a lot of people, it's out of sight and out of mind until something really bad happens, and then the family tries to fix it, and then they come back to saying, all right, I can't do this, I need help, and then these things become kind of a reality. But I'll kind of answer this question, in which we have an array of you know, payer sources within, I would call it kind of our payer portfolio. And so on one side of the market, right, whenever it comes to the private pay market, we've been you know, trying to be as thoughtful about how much and how often we make those price increases. And it's an environment that I've never experienced before. And so it's you know, inflation at an all-time high, you know, over 40 years. The CPI is at 8.5. I think, you know, I'm not an economist, but anything over 6.5 historically over the last five years or so would absolutely kind of shake the boots of an economist. And so it's kind of like, you know, it's a little bit of uncharted territory. And to Neil's point too, like I've been a bit hesitant on like a race to the top whenever it comes to how much will the private market pay, and it's been rather inelastic thus far. But at some point, there's going to be a break on that, right? So it's like, and we'll see that either in length of stay, we'll see that in which families will say, hey, we've got to insource this thing and do more, you know, internally, you know, bring down average hours and things like that. So right now, it's a necessity for us to be able to get in the care talent that we need alongside that, but it's not something to take for granted. So when it comes to, like, you know, state and federal programs, so like Medicaid and, you know, very sizable Medicaid offering with LTSS and the program here in Virginia, it's been a real stretch in attempting to keep up with demand in comparison to the supply, because again, there's just there's a different you know, bill and wage dynamic compared to private pay. And so there's unit economics on LTSS, long-term services and supports, has been shrinking. And so we've been getting much more efficient. Neil said this a little bit earlier, and piggyback on that, we've had to get more efficient with our delivery system to produce a kind of a reasonable margin spread out of this. But like the advocacy we were just talking about, you know, the reimbursement rates is how to keep, you know, home and community-based services at the tip of the tongue of every legislator and influencer. And then not just that part of the equation, but other stakeholders like MCOs. Say, you know, necessity is kind of the mother of invention. So over the last 2 years, we've been working really hard on, you know, like with, you know, what we think are pretty innovative pay-for-performance programs with like Anthem, some things that now, you know, we're working with United Healthcare and others that essentially providing us incentives for positive outcomes in the home. And so, you know, so Vicki, to pair together with your great advocacy work, us as home care providers should be equipping you with fantastic outcomes, right? And so, for example, if you're looking year over year, the specific program we had with Anthem, we called it the High Touch program here in Virginia, in which you know, we reduced hospitalization, inpatient utilization, APT, you know, admissions per thousand by 54%. ER visits are down 27%. Our caregiver continuity, which is like you build trust with someone that you do life with on a consistent basis. So our score was 84%, and this was scored out by the Anthem member themselves. And then the satisfaction was 87%. So these are things that I found out earlier, and I'm sure everyone on the phone here can and on the Zoom here can kind of attest to this. But whenever we go to influencers and MCOs and with key folks that can move the needle around this, we have to show our value immediately up front. It's not just coming with an open hand and like, I need an extra $1 an hour. Prove the value, prove the outcomes, and then they can't live without us.
Absolutely, the nods you're getting. I joke when the team nods like that, it's like you're at church there. But no, absolutely, absolutely, Tim. So, and I'll echo that as we look here to this next question around the biggest threat and biggest opportunity to our industry over the next few years. I think we're all seeing some light at the end of some tunnels here, 2 years in. God bless Vicki joining HCAOA about a year before the pandemic. She's gone back to that joke a few times, but lots there in the last 2 years. But I know we've got some great Q&A from the group that is coming in here. So if we can keep our responses for the next couple of questions to that minute or two, that would be fantastic. But Neil, I'll start with you here. Love your thoughts on biggest threat and biggest opportunity to our industry.
So I think our biggest threat is to not self-destruct. I mean, there's such a demand for our services. The baby boomers are only 58 to 76. They haven't even hit the flywheel of when the average client's in their mid 80s and older. And so to me, I think we have a responsibility to run our businesses with a certain level of integrity, and businesses that don't run themselves effectively or they're ethically challenged and some other stuff I've seen over the years, it really gives us as an industry a really bad name. I think literally ourselves. We can only get the threat is ourselves. Like if we don't raise the bar as an organization, as an industry, we don't want to be on the New York Times or LA Times or Washington Post, and we're only as strong as our weakest link. So, and the same holds true for really any business out there that isn't doing it with, in a good way. And then from an opportunity perspective, I think the software platforms that are out there are not where they need to be. There's just today's just the analytics, the predictive analytics, for example, we have 8 clients live in a mile radius of each other, and we want to and a client wants care for an hour or two. Well, wouldn't it be nice if the software, kind of like Google Maps, or like you could just, there's a case ending at 4 and a caregiver is a half a mile away and they can get there at 4:05 and spend an hour or two. Because a lot of businesses, well, I'm not going to staff a 1 or 2 or 3 hour shift. Well, I do think technology and software is got a long way to go.
Brandy, I'd love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm doing lots of church nods as Neil is talking. So I'm going to build a little bit on what Neil said in terms of threat. So we're focused on bringing people into the industry right now, which is what we need to be doing. But we also need to just make sure we have a laser focus on the right people. I'm echoing for you, Maggie.
We are. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. If you guys can mute yourself for a second, I'm echoing back. That's better. Thank you. But we need to be laser focused on making sure we're bringing the right people into the industry that have the heart and passion to care for people. And if we bring in the wrong people, to Neil's point, that's not good for anyone. So we don't just need butts and seats. We don't need people to work that have a pulse. Like these are real things that we hear. We need the right people out there that are serving our seniors so we can improve care outcomes, and home care is a great experience. That's good for all of us on the line. And I think there's just a lot of balance to that. Like we talk about, we need to drive awareness, we need to bring people in, we need to make paths, but again, we just need to stay focused on quality and the right people and not just quantity, and that's not easy. So again, I didn't come bearing a silver bullet or a cape to the conversation, but I share this because we see agencies sometimes lowering the bar. And I say that like very raw. They hire out of desperation. And we hear these things. I just need a caregiver that has a pulse. I just need a caregiver that will do blah, blah, blah. And like we hear those things because companies come to us and they're like, yeah, I need to hire. I need to hire now, right? And so we hear a lot of those things. And again, no silver bullet, but I think it's important for us just to keep in mind is we bring more people to the industry. That doesn't mean everyone's going to be the right fit to deliver care. And that's okay. That might not be the right path. We can find another path for those folks. But I think the threat is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and bringing the wrong people in. So I think us having a focus on making sure that the right people, the opportunity I think in the room is deliver more care well. The market's asking for it. Everyone wants more care. Now it's up to us to make sure we're delivering just an awesome experience.
I muted myself. I've made it through webinar after webinar and not made that mistake, but there we go. But 2 years into a pandemic. But I know Tim has turned his camera off there. So go ahead, Vicki. I'll pass the mic to you here to answer this one.
Well, I'll go back to what Neil said as far as don't self-destruct as being a threat. First of all, this is a time of great opportunity for our industry. So it is ours to lose. And when I say that, I mean that this is the time that everyone knows who we are, wants the care, understands what the care can do, but that requires us to come together and, you know, develop some standards around what we do. And I'm just not talking about standards of care. I'm talking about, I forget what Neil or Tim talked about data. You know, the bottom line, and this is the group that we represent, the non-medical personal care providers. Right now, we have no set standard data like our home health sisters and brothers who all are reporting the same. They have Home Health Compare. We have got to come together to be able to validate. And the only way we can do that is if we come together on deciding what are the core basic standards for a home care agency delivering personal care. What are the data? What's the data that we need? And I think, Tim, you mentioned, how are we impacting that hospitalization? It is amazing. And now I'm not saying there isn't data. Brightstar did a great study with Avalier that was announced back in early January, where they proved that they, you know, keeping that person home with 4 or 5 hours of personal care really did lower the Medicare costs for that beneficiary. But right now, 85% of home care agencies in this country aren't collecting any data. And so we have got to take hold of this opportunity and do the things that are needed in order to take advantage of that opportunity moving forward. As far as the threat is, you know, that's an opportunity, but the threat is just that, not working together as an industry, not being one voice when it comes to advocacy. And I think the other thing, we have got to make certain that home care is part of our healthcare system. And I'm talking about non-medical at this point and being at the table, making sure that Medicaid doesn't treat us differently, because why is it an entitlement for nursing home care for Medicaid, but it's not an entitlement to receive in-home care under Medicaid? That's just unacceptable. And so those are the things that I think that are opportunities that we cannot let it pass us by. And the threat is not doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tim, you're back here, sir. In the next minute or two, let me know your threats and your thoughts here on threats and opportunities.
Yeah, I think these blend together. Yep, and you can hear me, right?
Yep, you're good.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's the opportunity and threat are blended together, in which let's ensure we understand who we are now, right? It's something in which, like, for the longest time, we were working so hard towards the credibility of, like, hey, we're part of healthcare too. You know, it's not just about, you know, the larger payer systems. It's not about, like, just, you know, this entire kind of like this entire ecosystem that's happening in the home. Essentially, you know, really starts and ends with us. So, you know, the past few years has accelerated that credibility, and you know, I believe that collectively we're working towards becoming the leader. I'm underscoring the in population health. And so, you know, consider the position of our care teams, how they interact and build trust daily with the families we serve. We probably get 98% of the time the attention, possible, you know, positive influence, what have you, versus a primary care physician, versus a cardiologist, neurologist, going to the hospital, you name it. We're essentially, you know, at the epicenter of all this. And you can see it, you know, from us just being kind of a, you know, a puzzle piece to the care plan, but to being, you know, the centerpiece. And MCOs certainly are recognizing this, just what we've seen recently with Optum and the purchase of LHC. But I think we're at this kind of this intersection of value creation through that entire healthcare vertical. And and again, I heard how do we show up with our data, with our outcomes? Look at what matters to large payers and providers, right? So what matters to an MCO is enhanced member experience, the membership growth, risk adjustment, managing their MER or MLR, right? The medical loss ratio, and then optimizing how they also their fund flow, right? Their performance programs, HEDIS, and things like that. So anyway, if I was going to pull it together on like our opportunity, a high-performing home care company will do the following, right? So focus on the member experience. We'll enhance service capabilities. Whatever you're doing now, we should be able to do more. Invest in technology. Neil was bringing that up earlier. What we're doing right now with our case management system is just not going to be enough. We're well beyond EVV. Prepare to take on risk. And maybe that's not applicable to every single person here on the phone, but one reason or one way or another, being say that we trust in our outcomes and we're willing to put some sort of fee, whether that's with private paid families possibly, or certainly with MCOs and other, we'll put that at risk because we want to rightfully share in the claims savings that we're producing for the healthcare system. And then also, look in the mirror and how can we drive operational efficiency as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good, provider specific question here before we wrap up with our one sentence is usually what I make poor Angelo do, but give you 1 minute for our last question. But between Tim and Neil, your thoughts here on what's working best from a retention perspective. I'm lucky enough to know the unique things that both of your teams are doing. Would love if you could share that more broadly with the folks on the line here. So Tim, if you want to take it away, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think there's a common theme here where it's like kind of an obsession every single day on how we can be the employer of choice, how we can be, and we're not just talking about home care, right? It's we all need plenty of folks that are see the value and the credibility and what it means to be, doing this really important work every single day. So from a retention perspective, I'll think about a couple, just provide some kind of like practical, specific things that we're doing. We have a caregiver advisory board. It's like a board of directors that I report into on a quarterly basis. I'm serious. They tell me what to do. It's the best thing ever. I ask them what's working, what's not, and how can we ensure that we're treating them really well, and that this is a place where not only they're going to stay with us for the next number of years, and these are some of our more seasoned caregivers, but what stops them from, digging into that buddy bonus, that referral bonus on bringing in, their friends and families and others to come work alongside them. So it's a practical point in which it's an opportunity to step back and listen and understand from the experts on how we essentially recruit and retain this talent. There was some comments earlier about the power of peer leadership. I wholeheartedly agreed in that. So something that we're actually bringing back. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So they're bringing back a caregiver mentor program and just being a little bit more intentional around, kind of the salaried caregiver focus for that. And, and then very specific assignments on long-term development of their caregiver peers, kind of putting together a real career ladder, not something that is just kind of generic and say, all right, you can come here and then become an LPN and RN. And I believe it was Vicky was saying this earlier, that's not everyone's path, but it is like, but everyone wants to be developed on a consistent basis, per some of, Brandy's comments earlier. We're piloting we call it Caregiver Buddy. And so it's like new caregivers. We have lots of new caregivers that have come to work and be with us. And so what does their first week look like? And so taking a caregiver buddy, there's a cost to this, paying them alongside with the other caregiver in their first week of work. And so, we're going to be tracking caregiver NPS, retention, hours utilization. Obviously, we're going to have to see the right ROI around this because we're paying twice for one shift, essentially. But it's the idea of how do we really get our arms around folks who are new. And then we're also, probably going to do a new pilot around, we call it Care Advantage Care Coach, but it's through a company called eFamily Care. and it's a mobile and PC-based real-time support system with MSWs, so social workers on the other side give her caregiver support, so another loop of support from, for their daily work and emotional well-being. So trying to, as much as we can, look at the needs of a caregiver holistically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Neil, I know you and your team have done a lot of great things here for all 50 plus years that you've been there, right? Would love your 2 cents here.
Just in the interest of time, I mean, we are going to do Q&A still. Is that the game plan?
Yep.
All right, I'll keep it. I mean, I could say a lot, but I'll once again condense it. I think it's a cult, like comes back to your company culture, in my view. And it sounds so basic, but the dignity and respect that they deserve, and they feel valued and appreciated. And it sounds good, like a good buzzword, and oh yeah, it sounds great. But do you really do it, and how do you really do it? So I think it just starts with the premise of that is what you want your company culture to be. Because other company cultures focus on how much more we can sell, get the next account, and get the next thing. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, by the way. I just believe that you will reduce your retention. You'll have greater retention, less turnover if you have a culture that's very caregiver centric. So I can't emphasize that enough. And one of the ways is, just ongoing surveying of the caregivers. And they'll tell you. And I mean, literally, like professionally outsourced third party survey company that tells us, and the caregivers tell us what we're doing well and where we can improve, and we know what we got to do. So let's just kind of make it part of our business plan and start improving where they're telling us to improve. Benefits, I mean, we offer real benefits, like real health insurance. It's not, let me just do enough to get by. I mean, if any part of the population, in my view, needs it even more, perhaps, is this group. And so real health insurance, real dental, vision, life, 401k, and explain to them the value of, again, lower income, but if you can pay them more, and then put a portion of that away. And I mean, we have 87% of the caregivers are eligible, are putting money towards the 401k, and then they get matched. They get money that matches it. And just educating. It just takes a lot. It's not the traditional training because the state says you have to do it, but life helpful information that can help them day to day seems to go a long way.
Okay. No, absolutely. I know we've got some really, really good questions, and we want some folks to connect to some of those resources via the poll that we'll launch here in a second. So 15 seconds, if you don't mind, I'll kick with you, Vicki. 1 sentence. What's something unique or interesting you're working on from a workforce perspective that people should know about?
I'm going to take the side of a trade association and talk about our advocacy initiatives, one being those national standards, the other one being data collection, doing something with a demonstration project, embedding home care in the healthcare system, our support of caregivers, and including in that is immigration. And then, of course, our other effort is looking at how are we going to finance long-term services and supports as we continue to all grow older.
Absolutely. Neil, over to you.
Say, we have a caregiver goodwill committee. So they have life circumstances that put them in a very vulnerable place. And we have a sizable budget that goes towards helping them through. Sometimes it's gifts, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's a hotel with a fire in their apartment, like whatever it may be. And just think doing that little extra goes, well, it's a lot extra, but it's a little extra or a lot extra goes a long way.
All right. And what about you there, Tim?
Yeah, we've been doing sort of like last year or so, but anyway, something we thought was kind of innovative. I'll call it like a Caregiver Candy Crush, but it's an app-based reward system that tracks caregiver actions and outcomes, and we tie that to the EVV, so it's all kind of like fact-based and everything, and they have an opportunity to earn and redeem these kind of these coins, these virtual coins towards gift cards and other rewards. So it's something that is on top of kind of the typical payment system, everything like that, and they really enjoy it. It's fun. It's something that the leaderboard and everything else like that. So something new. We're trying to, put some gamification and fun into it.
Absolutely. Brandy, over to you, 15 seconds.
15 seconds. So one, my CNA jobs, you can now tap into people that are learning and training on their own time. So think about tapping into people that are spending hours of time, of their own time, learning about skills and care. That's a small little pile of gold. So check that out. Second one, to Neil's point, culture's king. Coach Up Care is a neat platform to give you a foundation to build on. It blends recognition, surveys, communication tools together to help build a place and be a foundation to build a great place to work. So I think I'm under 15 seconds, Maggie.
We'll keep you. So there's some great pieces we just talked about there across advocacy that the team at HCAOA is doing. If you're on the line today and you're a My CNA Jobs member and you want that training and strategy session, let us know there. I'll launch a quick poll here. If you're not a member of My CNA Jobs, or if you're interested in learning more about the tools there, let us know. We talk about our applicant tracking system integrations, resources, tools available, what's new this year. And then if you're interested in learning more about Coach Up Care, interesting to learn more about that new retention tool, let us know. We'll reach out and book a conversation there to get a demo on the book. So as folks are filling out that poll here, there were some fabulous questions that came in. A couple of them are specific to a few of our presenters, so we'll get those over to folks as a follow-up here. But there's a lot of good ones in here. One of them I'd love to hear from the panelists here. How can you cast a vision beyond a paycheck? And I think a lot of folks talk about that. Every single one of you talked about culture today, talked about the value of culture, building a culture of care. What does that look like for you and your organization? So I'd be curious what that looks like for you and your team, Tim, and what you're doing there to build that vision and that culture beyond what they're seeing in the market today.
Again, it's a lot of consistent campaigns and communication every single day, essentially, recognizing, calling out good work that, the teams are doing, but it's every interaction, essentially demonstrates that, honoring kind of the purpose-driven work that, the team's doing out in the field. We have a really wonderful marketing communication team that consistently highlights these through all different channels of social media to a number of other different ways that are just kind of bespoke, if you will, to those specific communities. So it's just being consistent and walking the walk every single day in regards to that why.
So somebody also asked if they could sign up for Caregiver Candy Crush. So Tim, just know that is a question that came in as well. Mike asked how he could participate in that one as well. So sure. Neil, would love to hear from you. I know you talked about focusing on retention, focusing on building a place people want to come and work. So you're not as focused on recruitment because it's a place that people want to stay as well. Any other parting thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I think when you're dealing with people, there's always inevitably there's going to be some situations of tension or conflict or whatever. It may not be the right match between, not everyone gets to sue caregiver for their family. And so finding that match is crucial. And then when situations present themselves, I think for so many years, the industry has been sort of geared towards, well, whatever the client says is gold. And we'll just get you a new caregiver. And I think it would be important to, one, dig deeper on these issues when they present themselves, and the caregivers are often quite surprised when they find that the company is actually taking their position as opposed to the clients, and even at the willingness to say we're not the right match for you as a client and having them go elsewhere.
Both of you have it is evidenced by your board of caregiver directors, Tim, which I've just rebranded it as that. And Neil, I know you have the liaisons and the folks that serve to provide that open communication line. You're investing in that retention as well. You're investing in having your caregivers have a seat at the table as well, which I'm sure undoubtedly your teams will see success now and in the future on that front. So out of respect for everybody's time, fabulous questions in here. We'll follow up with folks afterwards and get those over to Neil, Tim, Vicki, and Brandy. But I want to thank our fantastic panelists for joining us for today's conversation. Absolutely only wish we had more time on the line together. So thank you, Neil, Tim, Brandy and Vicki, for your expertise, your time, and your insight. I know it's appreciated and valued by the industry. Tough topics here, the start, I'm sure, of more conversations to come. I appreciate everybody on the line joining us for today's conversation. So hope you have a great rest of your week and a nice holiday weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I